Okay, so I wanted to get started asking about the development of the film and Joe, you writing the script, you both coming up with the idea. What was that process like of really coming up with the idea for the story and getting the story written?
Yeah, it all kind of goes back to the fact that Daniel and I have been close collaborators since we were children, basically. Since I was like 19, we met in college, and we've been making stupid little videos and then videos that are increasingly stupider, but maybe funnier. And, Daniel is such a great director, and I've always been on the acting and writing side of things. And eventually we got to a point where we said, can we make a movie? Can we go for making short films and sketches and little things and make one big thing? And we realized we could do it when we looked outside of our collaboration. And I realized, okay, as long as I've known Daniel, I have been a stand-up comedian. That is my profession. And then Daniel, on the other side, his profession is he's a documentary filmmaker. And we thought, okay, I think that's it. We can take that philosophy of write what you know. I'll bring all these experiences I've had as a stand-up, and then Daniel will bring his experiences as a documentarian, and then we've got this chocolate peanut butter situation, and it started to flow, and we got really excited, and then before we knew it, we were filming this thing.
And then I'm speaking about directing, Daniel, I wanted to ask you about that experience for you and how you approached the directing and what was your overall like directing style during the production.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of experience as a documentary director. And so the style of this, we kind of had the freedom of being a little loose and kind of real with all of our scenes. So going into a single scene, we knew we had to make it feel like it was occurring in real time, but not like it was a scene that was written. So there was a lot of, I mean, Joe wrote out the script and it's not improvised, it's there. And so a lot of what my job was to make it feel very natural and very real in the moment. And that meant, just being part of the scene and kind of being a character in the scene. So my choreography was similar to the actors blocking. So I had camera blocking as well as them, and I would have to move certain ways. And but it was a good challenge to have because you don't usually have the freedom of that on a real documentary. Yeah, I can't do a second take or a second angle if we didn't get the line how I wanted it. But I still wanted it to feel like when it all came together in the edit that um it was a very real thing that we captured and were able to edit together versus something that felt a little staged.
And with the actors, what was the casting process like in bringing the actors on board? And Joe, why did you also decide to appear in the movie as well?
Yeah, this we were really there's an element of going back to basics for me and Daniel, although I don't know that we ever fully left the basics, so I don't know if you can exactly go back to them, but so much of what we do and what really gets us excited is the elemental feeling of Daniel has a camera and I'm in front of the camera. We've done so many things that way, and we've done things that are bigger productions, and we do love that, but every time it feels like we're in college again, where we're running around and it's just the two of us, and that's the whole production. And that uh, we didn't want to lose the spirit of that with this movie. And because it takes place in the world of stand up, I was essentially the casting director of this film because I drew from that community and all my friends who are stand ups, and we shot at real stand up venues because we wanted it to look right. And I wanted all the stand ups to feel and look like stand up. So some of them aren't professional actors, but, especially with Daniel's, careful hand as a director. And again, sometimes it's just a camera and it's just us, so it doesn't feel too intimidating. I think we were able to get some good performances out of these people that either I've loved working with or got to work with in a different capacity after having known them through stand up for years.
And once they signed on to come on board to star in the film, how did you both work with the rest of the cast in building the story and the characters and the comedy overall?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, once the actors signed on to star in the film, how did you work with them and building the characters and the story with them as well?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, Joe will attest to this. A lot of the people who were cast were kind of in mind when the script was written, or we'd know who was going to be in a scene, and we'd kind of rewrite the scene a little bit to fit their voice. So everyone was kind of playing a version of themselves or of who they are. So nobody had to do a real big reach. For instance, Sam Wiles, who plays Dan in the film, Jay Christopher's kind of opener and travel companion. Um, the character was very much built around Sam's personality.
Hmm.
And I think we really played to his strengths, which he's a very charming, nice guy. Um, and everybody else in the film similarly, like all the backstage people, we just kind of had them do their thing. And if people needed a little more hand-holding than others to get the lines right or to something to feel a little more natural, it really wasn't, like Joe said, like because it was such a smaller scale production, it wasn't intimidating, and we were able to just walk through that. And also I, as the editor, I as with an editor brain, like kind of know what I need to make a scene work. So if someone was struggling, I'd be like, don't worry about it. Like, let's just get this one line and we'll edit around it and we'll get a few more takes later. And so there was no like, not in any kind of negative way, but it was like if people weren't super comfortable in the role, we'd make sure that we got what we needed to bring it all together in the edit.
And how did you work with the rest of the cast in creating the comedy just in general and the satire? Like you said, like is everything pretty much like based on their skills, or were there specific elements that you wanted to include overall in terms of like the satire? How did you find that balance?
Totally. I mean, we would, if it was a role that we felt like needed some discussion. We also traveled across the country to make this movie. So sometimes we knew we needed a character in the Midwest, but we're both based in Los Angeles. And so I would have to think about who I know in the Midwest who could handle this. And then we would, set up a call to talk to them about the character over Zoom. My friend John Eisenrich, who plays a kind of crazed fan, and I knew he could do it. And I hadn't worked with him in a while, but he's such a dear friend that when we considered him for that role, it all started clicking. So for someone like him, we kind of talked over Zoom. We went over what we needed, and then there's always the magic of just being on set and seeing what they're bringing to the role, and then going with that and following the discoveries. And then, I also, because we're really like I'm kind of alluding to, we were picking people that were our friends because we trusted them and we knew they could go along with the process. But we also we needed them to trust us because it was a slightly different filming process. And so, are they? For example, we needed an actor to travel to Ohio with us to film these scenes, and we needed her to do it twice. And I'm very lucky that my girlfriend is a very talented actor. And so that's someone who we feel comfortable with, that she can go on a trip with us and be around us 24/7. That works perfectly because I live with her. So she could just continue living with me as we travel for this film. And so all these things came together. And obviously, I'm very lucky that my partner is extremely talented and one of the more talented performers we've ever worked with. But all those things needed to, and like we said, Sam is someone who fits that role, but also Sam was another person who had to travel with us. So you try to find these people who fit these roles, but also that they're going to go along with you. And, this is going to be a trip. It's almost going to be like going to camp as much as it is making a movie.
Yeah, and just to echo off that, because yeah, like because of the trust thing, and also because this was a non-traditional shoot, so we didn't have crafty, we didn't have trailers. Like we filmed on the side of the road in Indiana, and we all had to go to the side of the road in Indiana to get it. And so we were driving in the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere, and we didn't want to do that with someone we had hired we didn't know well, who didn't understand who we were and what we were trying to accomplish. So yeah, in that way we're really lucky that all the people that we wanted to have in the film signed on and trusted us to do this.
And speaking of the different locations where you filmed, how did you decide where you were going to actually shoot the movie? Was it like the things that you planned in advance, or did you find places when you were traveling? Or how did that work as well?
It's a little bit of both, but I would say more so on the side of we did, I think, a good job planning, and we had to go off of what was convenient for us. So we shot a lot of things in Los Angeles just because it's our backyard and we have more freedom there to go to a place and then come home. Whereas we also felt like it was important because part of this movie takes place on the road. It takes place at real stand-up shows that we couldn't fake the Midwest in Los Angeles. We need to go to the Midwest. And I came up in the Chicago scene years ago doing stand up, so I have connections there. So not only was I familiar and I kind of knew the lay of the land, but I could hop on shows and Daniel could film because that's another thing we did was we filmed at real stand-up shows and got real reactions from the audience. But then also we could stay at friends' places. There was just access. We kind of went wherever the access was. You know, maybe it would have been nice to shoot in Michigan. We don't know anybody in Michigan. But I do have a cousin who lives in Ohio who has a house that kind of looks like the type of house we wanted to shoot in. And so I called in a favor and said, "Hey, can we film at your house and then also sleep there?" And that if they said no, I don't know what we would have done because a lot of this really relied on the kindness of our loved ones and getting favors from people in the stand-up community and people that, and some of them I didn't know that well, but they were very game and cool to let us do our weird thing, whether it was in their house or it was in the stand-up venue. But we mapped it out based on what would make the most sense, and not unlike our casting decisions, what places would have the people that would trust us.
And also speaking about the shooting process, and Daniel, I saw that you were also the cinematographer. What was that experience like for you and visually shooting the film while you were also directing?
Yeah, so one of the things about going off of the location element is that all of these venues were lived in and they were the real places, and authenticity was really important for the movie to make comedy clubs feel like real places and not these designed uh, sets or whatever that you often will see on TV for, better or for worse. So when we went in there, it was kind of just finding the good light and having everybody blocked in the right way. So yeah, we really used what was already there, and very occasionally we would supplement with a light or two. But my documentary background, I had a lot of experience in just going into a place that you have no real control or say over, and you can't bring in a production designer to do much. So you just got to make it work, and that's what we did. So um, as a cinematographer, the style was handheld and a little loose on purpose to make it feel like what we were capturing was happening in the moment and not something that was predicted by the camera operator in the film. So it was a lot of fun to play around with that. And then it's really cool to see these places that are very real and very special to a lot of comedians be filmed as they are and not kind of glorified in any particular way.
Also, going back to the editing process, what was that experience like overall? And once you got all the footage and really putting the final version of the film together?
Yeah, the first edit of the film was not crazy, but it was about 2 hours, and the final film is 86 minutes. And
Hmm.
there was just a lot that we realized immediately. Oh, we don't actually need this whole dialogue scene that happened. We can edit it down quite a lot, which is another thing that really added to the documentary element of it was in documentaries, you take an hour, you edit down to a minute. So we were doing some of that, and it kind of brought the scenes to life, really, in a way. To me,
Hmm.
that felt more like a real documentary. Stealing a reaction shot here and there, just kind of boiling down the dialogue scenes to their base elements. And then we had to make some tough decisions about scenes that just didn't have, they didn't promote, they didn't propel the story when it needed to be going forward. And so we had to make some tough calls, but we did it. And there are a lot of good deleted scenes, a lot of scenes that are montaged a bit that used to be several different scenes all in a row. And do I love the original version? Of course. But but the final film, it works really well. And, I'll always have those deleted scenes if I need them.
Yeah, in your heart and on your hard drive.
In my heart and my hard drive.
And also, in terms of producing the film, how did you approach getting the film going as the producers as well?
We really took the approach of we don't want to wait around for someone to tell us to do this, which is a reality of a lot of filmmaking, is you got to get the green light from somebody who can support you. And we felt like, and it was by one of the reasons why this project is our first narrative feature collaboration, is that we knew we could do this truly independently, that we did not have to wait around at all. We could, once we felt ready, we could go and we could do it. And Daniel, one of the things about him is that he wears a lot of hats. And for this type of production, that is exceptionally valuable. And Daniel's an excellent producer. He does, he's the director. You already noted that he's the cinematographer and the editor, and he was doing sound on. I mean, like, there's just a lot of elements that you can put under the umbrella of production that fell on to Daniel, and also at times fell on to myself. But it's kind of the background we come from, is that we made we've made hundreds of short films and sketches and music videos and pilots and web series. We've always done it just as this team. Sometimes we've gotten help, but the thing that has always been I almost don't want to call it good luck charm because it is the thing, but we know how to do this, and it was a question of whether we could handle something of this scale. But I was just impressed at how well Daniel specifically was able to take everything I know that he's good at as a producer and apply it to a full feature film. It was really impressive to watch.
Yeah, and we both are producers on this film, and Joe's given me a lot of credit for the technical stuff, and that's kind of where I was focused. And Joe was, like he said, he was the casting director essentially, and booking all the venues, and like there was just a division that we had that really made it possible for us each to do our job as best as we could and not to be thinking about the wrong thing at the wrong time. So like when it came to the technical stuff or when we were actually shooting, Joe was not worrying about that. He was in character, he was doing the scene, he was paying attention to other actors' performances as well, and then when it came to like setting up venues and scheduling, that's where he would really, focus a lot of his attention during those times. So hopefully the result is a movie that, when I needed to do what I needed to do, it was good. And when Joe needed to do what he needed to do, it was good. And I think anybody else who we brought in, I don't think would have been on board to do all of the work that it took to pull it together. But because Joe and I have been working together for so long, we know what it takes and we know we can trust each other and we can rely on each other to do things maybe we're not particularly adept at doing. Or maybe I hate calling people and asking for favors, and Joe's fine with it. Uh, so yeah, all of that kind of stuff really worked together, or worked because we worked together so well.
Yeah, that word trust really that's the key, is that I am never second guessing what Daniel's doing behind the camera. And I've worked with people before where I don't know, but I know Daniel enough, and I know his barometer for quality, his threshold for what he will accept. I know if it's not good enough, he will say it in the moment. We do not have to tiptoe around each other. We don't have to, there's no eggshells. It's just, no, we're not doing that. Whether it's my performance, whether he's like, I'm not getting the right angle, or like, I don't like this room, or the does not matter. The sound wasn't great here. Daniel is always on it. And for me, that is so freeing because I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I can just be locked into what I'm doing, and I know Daniel's got it under control. And that is, for a film that is as independent as this, so valuable.
Now with the movie having its world premiere coming up at Dances with Films, what does that mean to both of you that the movie's going to be premiering at the festival and being able to share it with the audiences in that way?
We're very excited to see an audience react to this. When you're in the editing bay, of course, it's you can get a little tunnel vision. And Daniel and I have both seen this movie over and over again. It will help us to revive, hopefully, our love for it, to hear people laugh. I'm excited to this is the way that obviously we want people to see it. It's a comedy. We want it to be with a group of people in an audience who are ready to laugh. And we're very, very thrilled to be premiering it in our backyard in Los Angeles. So many of the people who worked on the film live in LA, and so they can. This is essentially a cast and crew screening as much as it is a world premiere because all these folks get to come and see it in addition to our friends. And Daniel and I have both been here for a decade plus. We get to tell everybody, like, hey, our movie is going to be at not just in LA, but at the Chinese Theater, which is one of the historic venues in the world. And so we're just really excited for it all to be coming together in what feels like the perfect time and place.
Yeah, and Dances with Films is it's unlike a lot of festivals because it really builds a community between the filmmakers. So that's really has been great. Like even it starts in, a few days, but it's at this point there's already been so many emails and so many group threads and texts that's just like we're getting to know all of the filmmakers already, and it's a community rather than other festivals which tend to be very self-centered and focused on just your movie and then you go home or whatever. This is a very different experience than a lot of festivals are. So it's a good opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the other films too, but especially how audiences react to our movie.
Okay, I think that was mainly it, but thank you both again for coming on a little later and speaking with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for rolling with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
great.
All
Thanks
right.
again.
Take care. Bye bye.
You too. Thanks. Bye.